The boardroom was glass and winter light, all edges and echoes. A billionaire in a slate suit leaned back like he owned oxygen. "Translate this," Richard Sterling said, flinging a Japanese contract across the mahogany. His voice slid across the table toward a girl in a school blazer, her backpack tucked by a mop bucket. "Do it, and I'll give your mom my job." Laughter, small, nervous, cruel, fluttered around crystal glasses. Zara Williams didn't look away. 13. Hair in neat twists, homework marked with kanji notes. Her mother's cleaning ID badge hung on a chair. Zara set her pencil down, palms steady. "Sir," she said softly, "are you sure you want me to?" "Certain," Sterling smirked. "Show the room what passes for talent in the service wing." Silence. The clock clicked. Executives studied their shoes, their phones, their consciences. Dr. Catherine Morrison, chief of global ops, shifted, a crease of worry across her brow. She'd seen the insults before. She hated them every time. Zara gathered the scattered pages. Her eyes moved, not guessing, not faking, reading. Something in the room's pressure changed, like a storm noticing land. She traced characters with one finger, then spoke in measured Japanese, pitch and politeness calibrated like a violin string. Head snapped up. Glass stopped chiming. Someone's coffee quivered. Sterling's smile cooled. "What was that supposed to be?" "The part," Zara answered, "where your company agrees to cover delays you thought the supplier would cover." She pointed to a clause. "This line, Shui Shao Kao Shang, voids your termination protections. If you sign like this, you invite a lawsuit and lose." She inhaled. Estimated exposure, 12 million. A murmur rolled the perimeter. Morrison leaned in, pupils bright. "May I?" She checked the script. The girl was right, painfully right. Sterling's laugh came out thin. "Lucky guess." Zara kept her eyes on the page. Section 4 mistranslates liability. Payment terms misalign. And the honorifics used imply they're the senior partner, not you. In Japanese business culture, that matters. A bead of sweat formed at Sterling's temple. He flicked open his gold phone. "Fine. Tokyo. Now." The 80-inch display bloomed. 3 executives in a chrome-bright conference room. Sterling tried a broken greeting, vowels stumbling. Confusion blinked across the screen. Zara stepped closer, voice smooth as silk thread. "Hajime mashite. Wumumu, jara, desunsimast. Bunjie no go bubano o kakesite ni shunchi gozaimasu." The monitor changed, brows softened, shoulders eased. The men responded in crisp, grateful Japanese. Zara listened, then turned to the room. "They've been trying to warn you for 2 weeks." The translation service kept missing the cultural signals. Phones buzzed around the table. A German number flashed, Zara answered. "Guten Tag. Here is Zara Williams von Pinnacle Global," and in 3 sentences unpacked a machinery spec error. Another call, Korean. She bowed her head slightly, voice shifting formal. Panic dissolved on the other end like salt in warm water. Morrison watched, stunned. It wasn't just fluency. It was fluency with empathy, the secret engine of real communication. Where adults created noise, a child was orchestrating harmony. Sterling's jaw worked. Enough. He stood, looming, shoes ticking against stone. "This is a corporation, not a talent show. Credentials matter." He tossed a card onto Zara's workbook. "When you're grown and trained, maybe you can file papers." Zara's hands trembled, but her gaze did not. "What if I'm trained already? What if listening is a credential?" A cleaning cart squeaked past the door. Zara's mom would start in 20 minutes, vacuum lights like small moons over dark carpet. The thought stiffened Zara's spine. How many times had she sat in this corner doing homework, hearing deals crack because meanings didn't cross? Morrison exhaled. "Richard, you just watched her prevent a catastrophe. Or create liability," he snapped. "Use a child, get sued like an adult." On the screen, Tokyo spoke again, urgent. Zara stepped forward, translating, switching politeness levels with the grace of a dancer changing tempo. "They're willing to reopen terms if we correct the wording and apologize for status imbalance. They prefer long-term partnership language." She paused, listening harder. "And they say our previous messages sounded cold." "Cold," Sterling scoffed. "In their frame," Zara said gently, "cold means disrespect." The room held its breath. Outside, the city glittered. Inside, conscience flickered. Morrison's voice softened. "Zara, how many languages?" Fluent? 12. Conversational more. No boast. A weather report. Sterling gathered his papers like a shield. This meeting is over. He pushed through the door, leaving the scent of expensive cologne and collapsing certainty. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It thrummed. People who'd watched, who'd doubted, now stood between what they'd believed and what they'd seen. Morrison met Zara's eyes. "Thank you," she said. 2 words, whole cathedral. Zara nodded, small and brave. She placed the corrected contract on the table, aligned square to the edge, as if the right angle could teach the room a right way. Then the Osaka line rang. A siren in a wire. Morrison lifted the phone, face blanching. Fast Japanese, technical, frightened. She faltered. Zara reached out, steady as a metronome. "May I?" Morrison handed her the call. Zara listened, pupils narrowing. "There's a leak," she whispered, covering the receiver. "The English safety manual doesn't match the Japanese one." "How bad?" Morrison asked. Zara brought the phone back to her ear, voice turning precise and formal. "Evacuate Building D. Now." Cut to black. Hook clenched. Justice had found its first word. The Osaka alarm had barely faded when the boardroom turned into a command center. Executives shouted across tables. Phones rang in every language. Dr. Morrison clutched the receiver, eyes wide. "They're saying the contamination is spreading." "Wait, I can't." Zara held out her hand. "Let me." Her voice slipped into fluent Korean, calm, rhythmic, cutting through the panic like light through fog. "Please repeat." "Building C, yes, understood." She jotted notes on her notebook's margin. "Dr. Morrison," she said, 3 workers are hospitalized. The manuals don't match. The English version says evacuate 200 meters, but the Japanese manual says 500. They're still inside. The room froze. Morrison's voice dropped. "Get them out." Zara relayed the order with formal precision. The relief on the other end was palpable even through static. Minutes later, confirmation came. Workers safe. 47 lives spared by a child's understanding of words that adults never cared to learn. Morrison sank into a chair, staring. "Zara, how do you know all this?" Zara hesitated. "While Mom cleans, I study. Manuals, call transcripts, contracts, anything left behind. I listen." Sterling's voice thundered from the doorway. "This is insane. You're letting a kid handle corporate emergencies." His face was red, pride flaring brighter than reason. "She just saved your company," Morrison said evenly. "With luck," he spat. "Real business needs credentials, not curiosity." He turned to Zara, sneering. "You think a few languages make you special? Stay in your lane." Zara's hands tightened around her notebook, but her gaze stayed steady. Maybe lanes were made for people afraid to walk freely. Sterling stormed out, leaving tension heavy as concrete. The room exhaled only when his footsteps disappeared. Morrison looked at Zara, admiration dawning like sunrise. "You're extraordinary." Zara shook her head. "No, I just hate seeing things lost in translation." Over the next days, quiet ripples turned into waves. Emails from Tokyo and Seoul arrived thanking Miss Williams for saving contracts. German engineers requested her on their next project. Executives whispered her name like rumor and revelation. But with attention came resistance. Legal teams sent memos, liability risk, unaccredited minor involvement. HR complained about policy violations. Sterling rallied allies, painting Zara as a fluke, dangerous, untrained, unfit. Morrison countered with data, contracts salvaged, losses prevented. Yet she knew the truth. The system feared her. Not the girl herself, but what she represented, talent that couldn't be owned. Late one night, Morrison found Zara in a janitor's closet, textbooks open beside a half-eaten sandwich. "Why aren't you home?" "Mom's still working," Zara murmured. "I like the quiet here." Morrison sat beside her. "You belong in a lab, a university, anywhere but hiding in a supply room." Zara smiled faintly. "Maybe. But you hear better when people forget you're there." The woman nodded slowly. "That might be your greatest gift." The next morning, Sterling walked into an ambush of truth. Morrison presented the board with evidence, recordings of Zara's crisis translations, emails she'd intercepted that predicted disasters, and the financial impact of her interventions. $46 million saved, Morrison said, because a janitor's daughter decided to pay attention. The room buzzed with disbelief. Zara stood silent in the back, notebook hugged tight. Sterling tried to laugh. So what? We make her an executive now. Morrison met his gaze. Maybe we start by listening. He snorted, but the tremor in his jaw betrayed him. That evening, Zara returned to her corner by the glass wall. The city shimmered below, countless lights, countless stories. She opened her notebook and wrote quietly. The language people ignore the most isn't foreign. It's respect. Outside, thunder rolled across the skyline. Inside, a revolution was learning its first words. Morning sunlight sliced through Pinnacle Tower's glass, cold and sharp. Zara walked beside her mother, their footsteps soft against marble floors still smelling of polish. Her mom adjusted her cleaning gloves. Keep your head down, baby. These people forget fast. But they hadn't forgotten. They whispered now. Some smiled politely, others stared too long. The miracle girl, the child translator, the janitor's daughter. Zara could feel the labels following her like shadows. Dr. Morrison met them by the elevators. Zara, can we talk before school? Her tone was gentle but urgent. They sat in the conference room. That conference room, now emptied of arrogance, but not of memory. I want to recommend you for a mentorship, Morrison began. Unofficial for now. You'd shadow me after school, learn global operations. Zara blinked. But, Mr. Sterling, he doesn't decide everything, Morrison said. Not anymore. Yet Sterling was deciding things. Behind closed doors, he rallied legal teams and policy committees, arguing that using a minor in business matters violated ethics, compliance, and common sense. He didn't care that Zara had saved the Osaka facility, or that Tokyo and Berlin now requested her by name. He cared that his authority had cracked in front of witnesses, and a child had been holding the hammer. That afternoon, a new crisis brewed. An email chain from Seoul arrived, full of confusion, urgent reports about faulty components, half translated into nonsense by an automated system. Morrison called Zara. Just read it. Tell me what they mean. Zara scanned the screen. They're not blaming us, she said carefully. They're embarrassed. The part failed, but they're afraid to report it directly. In Korean culture, criticizing a superior's decision causes loss of face. Morrison leaned forward. So they're trying to warn us without saying it. Exactly. Zara typed a message in Korean, phrased with perfect politeness. The reply came in seconds. Relief, gratitude, and full disclosure of the issue. A disaster averted again. But Sterling pounced. Unauthorized translation. She shouldn't have access to corporate data. His voice echoed down the hallway. This is becoming a circus. She prevented another $1 million mistake. Morrison shot back. With luck, with guesswork. Sterling's composure cracked. We can't build policy on miracles. Zara heard every word from the corner. The humiliation stung, sharper than before. For the first time, doubt whispered. Maybe she was overstepping. Maybe brilliance without a title meant nothing. That night, she sat by the supply closet where she studied, knees pulled close. Her mother found her there, silent tears tracing her face. You helped them again, didn't you? Zara nodded. It doesn't matter. He'll still see me as the maid's kid. Her mother cupped her cheek. Then stop waiting for him to see you. Shine until he can't look away. The next morning, Dr. Morrison burst into the office, phone in hand. Zara, emergency from Japan again, chemical plant issue. Without hesitation, Zara switched to Japanese, her tone professional, calm. She coordinated evacuation steps, translated technical terms, corrected mistranslated safety manuals, all before the company's paid translators had even logged in. By sunrise, the Osaka crisis was under control. 47 workers alive, millions saved, disaster avoided. When Morrison reported the outcome to the board, silence followed. Then a single voice, Sterling's, cold and cutting. You just proved my point. We've built a system so weak that a child can run it better than our executives. Morrison turned to him. No, Richard. She proved that genius doesn't need permission. Sterling's jaw tightened. Then we'll see how long luck lasts. Outside, Zara waited by the window, sunlight on her face, notebook in hand. She could hear them arguing beyond the glass. She didn't need translation to understand the language of fear. She opened her notebook and wrote a single line. Respect isn't given. It's translated into action. And she knew this was only the beginning. The Monday board meeting felt like Judgment Day. Every executive sat stiff-backed beneath the glow of screens displaying charts and headlines. Teen translator saves millions. The world was watching, but inside the glass tower, respect was still up for debate. Dr. Morrison stood at the front, notes in hand, voice steady. In the last 90 days, Pinnacle Global has avoided over 46 million in losses, thanks to one person. She turned toward Zara, who sat quietly at the end of the table, her school uniform pressed, her hands folded. Murmurs rippled. Some looked impressed, others offended. Sterling's image glared from the big screen, attending via video call from New York. "We're not here for fairy tales," he said coldly. "We're here for policy. She's a child, not a professional." Morrison clicked to the next slide, Zara's language certifications, proficiency tests, global correspondence logs. "These aren't guesses," she said. "She reads, writes, and negotiates at professional levels in 12 languages. Show me any translator on payroll with that record." The silence was sharp. Sterling leaned forward, desperate. "Even if she's talented, hiring her violates every rule we have: child labor laws, insurance coverage, liability exposure." "Then we changed the rules," Morrison interrupted. "We built them to exclude the very talent that keeps saving us." A younger board member raised a hand. "Dr. Morrison, what are you proposing exactly?" "A new role," she said firmly. "Global communication specialist, competency-based, not degree-based." Sterling's laugh was short and bitter. "You'd make her an executive?" "No," Morrison replied. "I'd make her a precedent." Across the table, Zara's mother stood by the door, still in her cleaning uniform. She hadn't meant to attend, but Morrison insisted. The moment was as much hers as her daughter's. Sterling's tone hardened. "Do you realize what message this sends? That credentials don't matter. It sends," Morrison said, "that brilliance doesn't need permission." He slammed his fist on the table. "This is chaos. What happens when every janitor demands a corner office?" Zara spoke softly, the first time since the meeting began. "Maybe that's not chaos. Maybe that's fairness." Her words landed heavier than anger. Even the cameras seemed to pause. Morrison projected another slide, side-by-side comparisons of Zara's translations and those done by the professional service. The difference was staggering: accuracy, tone, cultural nuance. "She doesn't just translate language," Morrison said. "She translates intent. That's something machines and money can't buy." The chairman leaned back. "Let's vote." Sterling's voice dripped with disbelief. "You can't be serious." "On the contrary," Morrison replied. "For the first time, we are." 6 votes in favor, 1 against. The motion passed. Sterling's screen went dark. Morrison turned to Zara with a smile that carried both triumph and tenderness. "Congratulations, Miss Williams. You're officially Pinnacle's global communication specialist." Zara stared at the papers slid across the table: salary, title, credentials. Her eyes glistened. "But I don't have a degree," she whispered. Morrison smiled. "You have something rarer, proof." After the meeting, Morrison found her in the hallway, holding the offer letter like a fragile secret. She sat beside her, cross-legged on the floor. "You know, once someone did this for me," Morrison said. "A woman who mopped hospital floors taught me how to speak the language of empathy. Her name was Maria. The world never recognized her, but she changed mine." Zara listened quietly. "Maybe I can do that too." "You already are," Morrison said softly. "And remember, power means nothing if it doesn't lift others with it." That night, the janitor's daughter walked past the same polished corridors where she'd once been invisible. Every reflection in the glass whispered the same truth. She no longer needed to fit into their world. She had rewritten it. The next morning, her desk awaited, a small nameplate gleaming beneath the city light. Zara Williams, Global Communication Specialist. The conference room gleamed like a stage set for destiny. Banners, translators, legal teams, everything prepared for Pinnacle's biggest deal in history. A $500 million global partnership between Tokyo, Berlin, and Dubai. Cameras waited. Reporters whispered. Dr. Morrison checked her notes, heart racing. But trouble had arrived first. The translation team was out, food poisoning from last night's dinner. Backup services unavailable until Thursday. Panic flickered in her chest. "Without translators," she murmured, "this entire deal collapses." Across the city, Richard Sterling was already smiling. He'd sent her a message dripping with mock sympathy. "Heard your translators are down. Shame when amateurs ruin real business." Morrison looked up as the elevator chimed. Zara entered, school uniform crisp, hair neatly tied, a calmness far older than her years. Her mother followed quietly, carrying cleaning supplies for the evening shift. "Dr. Morrison," Zara said, "I heard about the translators." Morrison hesitated. "It's a huge responsibility. Too much for one person." Zara placed her cracked phone on the table. "Let me try." When the international delegates arrived, they were met not by confusion, but by a 13-year-old girl who bowed perfectly. "Tanaka-san," she greeted in flawless Japanese. "We are honored by your presence." Then, to the German engineer, Guten Tag, Herr Muller. "Ich from Michigan, Sizu-san." And to the Arabic delegate, "Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Al-Rashid." "Welcome." The room froze. Then slowly, smiles appeared. In minutes, tension melted into curiosity. For hours, Zara worked like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Japanese precision met German efficiency, balanced by Arabic diplomacy, all through her voice. She didn't just translate words, she carried emotion, intent, and respect. When disputes arose, about environmental standards, export laws, or cultural formalities, Zara listened deeply, then bridged them. "Tanaka-san" means long-term partnership, not short contract. Herr Muller is worried about certification, not trust. Mr. Al-Rashid's concern is ethical sourcing. Faith and business must align. The negotiators leaned closer, fascinated by how a teenager understood what their teams had missed for months. Then, the doors burst open. Sterling marched in, legal file in hand. "Stop this farce immediately," he barked. "You can't sign international contracts using an uncertified translator. It's illegal." The delegate stiffened. Morrison stood, calm as steel. "Mr. Sterling, Miss Williams is our official global communication specialist." He laughed. "She's a child with a dictionary." Tanaka-san rose from his chair. "This child," he said in accented English, "speaks business Japanese better than any consultant you've sent us." Muller added in German, which Zara translated without missing a beat. "She understands engineering terms most translators can't pronounce." Mr. Al-Rashid's voice deepened. "And she honors culture, not ego. We will proceed with her." Sterling's face drained of color. Cameras clicked. The deal he had hoped to sabotage was unfolding into a historic triumph. Zara presented the revised agreement, each clause checked, every translation double-verified by her notes. "All parties satisfied?" she asked, switching smoothly between tongues. 3 pens moved at once. The contracts were signed. Applause filled the room. Dr. Morrison's eyes shimmered. "Zara, you just closed the largest partnership in our company's history." Zara smiled modestly. "We just spoke the same language." Across the city, headlines exploded. 13-year-old translator seals $500 million deal. Social media flooded with clips of her switching languages like music. In that moment, the world learned what Pinnacle Global had almost ignored. Brilliance wears every skin, every age, every uniform. As the boardroom emptied, Zara lingered by the window where she once did homework in silence. Her reflection no longer looked small. It looked unstoppable. The janitor's daughter had not just translated words. She had translated history. 5 years later, the skyline looked different, brighter, fairer, alive with possibility. At the top of Pinnacle Global Tower, sunlight spilled across a door marked Zara Williams, Director, Global Communications. The once invisible girl now led the company's international division. Her story had gone viral, translated into dozens of languages, taught in schools, studied in business ethics classes. But Zara's pride wasn't in fame. It was in what had changed because of it. The Hidden Talent Initiative, her brainchild with Dr. Morrison, had transformed corporate culture worldwide. Degree walls came down. Skills-based hiring went up. Janitors, servers, and drivers across continents were being tested, trained, and promoted. In one corner of her office hung a photo, her mother in a nurse's uniform, diploma in hand. Beneath it, a note written in neat handwriting. "For every dream I once mopped away." Zara smiled at it every morning. Across from her sat Miguel Santos, the former janitor turned civil engineer, now designing sustainable housing projects for low-income families. "You know, Miss Williams," he said, "your program gave me back the life I thought I'd lost." Zara laughed. "Then you're proof it works." Just then, her assistant peeked in. There's someone here to see you. The door opened, and silence followed. Richard Sterling stood there, older, humbled, dressed simply. No gold watch, no arrogance. He held a thin folder in his hands. I don't expect forgiveness, he began quietly. But I'd like to help your foundation. To make sure I never become the reason someone stays unseen again. Zara studied him for a long moment. You once told me people like me don't get choices, she said softly. Do you still believe that? Sterling's voice cracked. No. I learned that when we silence talent, we bankrupt humanity. He handed her the folder, his application to the Hidden Talent Foundation. Zara nodded slowly. Everyone deserves a second chance, even those who once denied them to others. They shook hands, not as enemies or opposites, but as proof that redemption was possible. Later that day, Zara spoke at the foundation's press event. Reporters filled the hall, cameras flashing. Behind her stood workers from every walk of life. Nurses, janitors, drivers, teachers, each wearing a small silver pin that read, "Talent Recognized." 5 years ago, Zara began. I was just a kid doing homework in the corner while my mother cleaned offices. The world thought I didn't belong. But I learned something powerful. Opportunity isn't found. It's created when someone chooses to look. She paused, glancing toward the audience. Today, the Hidden Talent Foundation has trained over 10,000 multilingual professionals. But the real victory isn't in numbers, it's in recognition. In knowing that brilliance can wear any uniform. Applause rose, thunderous and emotional. That night, Zara returned to her old corner of the building. The same spot where she'd once sat quietly, ignored. Now, a small plaque gleamed on the wall. In this corner, a girl listened and changed the world. Nearby, a young boy sat doing homework, his father cleaning floors. Zara smiled and knelt beside him. What are you studying? Mandarin, he said shyly. My dad talks to the engineers who can't speak English. That's wonderful, Zara said warmly. Keep learning. The world needs more translators, of words and of hearts. As she walked away, city lights shimmered through the glass, reflecting a truth she had lived. Talent whispers in every language, but opportunity only speaks to those brave enough to listen. And somewhere, in the hum of the building she once cleaned, the world finally understood her translation.